How many burgers do we eat each week, trusting that a label reading 100% beef means exactly what it says? What if that trust has been weaponized and the very ground meat sold in school cafeterias, VA hospitals, and discount stores is hiding chemicals, pathogens, and slaughterhouse secrets that Europe banned years ago? In May 2025, the European Food Safety Authority confirmed a continent-wide ban on 10 categories of U.S. ground beef, citing contamination risks from carbon monoxide-treated meat, banned growth hormones, and residues of drugs like zilpaterol and propylparaben. And yet, here in America, those very same products are proudly served to the public with no warning labels, no country of origin disclosures, and no questions asked. Are we the last stop in the global meat dumping chain? Why are older Americans, working families, and veterans being fed food that wouldn't even make it past European customs? This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. And today, we're pulling the lid off 10 ground beef products banned in Europe, but quietly hiding inside your burger. Number 1, JBS USA. You might want to sit down for this. That burger you're grilling tonight, the one labeled 100% beef, USDA inspected, and priced just right for a tight budget, could be hiding more secrets than a politician's burner phone. JBS USA, the corporate meat machine feeding half the country, has spent years convincing us that their ground beef is clean, affordable, and all-American. It's on school lunch trays and hospital meals, on fast food menus, and piled high in grocery freezers from California to Kentucky. And it's sold under a badge of trust built not just on branding, but on the quiet desperation of folks trying to feed families without draining their last $20 bill. But in spring of 2025, the mask slipped. The USDA dropped a bombshell audit revealing that JBS plants in Nebraska and Pennsylvania had failed to report contamination from E. coli 157:H7, an organism that doesn't just cause stomach aches, but kidney failure and death. Internal memos exposed by whistleblowers detailed routine sanitation shortcuts and pressure to meet quotas even when contamination risks were obvious. And the meat? It still got shipped. It landed in schools, in military bases, in senior centers, and according to the CDC, at least 14 hospitalizations and 1 death in Florida are now linked to it. If that's not enough to curdle your appetite, consider this. Europe banned this type of beef years ago. The European Food Safety Authority outlawed beef from facilities using lactic acid pathogen reduction instead of real contamination control, and demanded strict traceability JBS can't provide. But in the US, we get it tossed in with dollar menu burgers and pre-cooked meatloaf like it's just another Tuesday. And then there's the zilpaterol. This muscle-boosting drug, still legal in the US, is banned in over 160 countries, but it's been found in JBS ground beef, and science shows it may cause heart irregularities, tremors, and hormone disruption, especially dangerous for older folks or anyone with a weakened system. You wouldn't season your burger with blood pressure meds, but you might be doing just that without even knowing. And it gets darker. Between 2022 and 2024, Forest Eye tracked over 200,000 acres of destroyed Amazon rainforest directly tied to JBS cattle suppliers. So that $2.49 patty on your grill might come with a silent side order of climate damage. When you add up the child labor investigations, bribery scandals, price-fixing schemes, and now public health risks, the question isn't just, is this beef safe? It's, why is this company still allowed to feed our kids? Thankfully, there are better choices creeping into the mainstream. Strauss Brands offers clean, grass-fed beef with no added hormones. Force of Nature sources regeneratively raised meat with full transparency. Or you can take the old-school route. Ask your local butcher to grind a cut right in front of you. It costs a bit more, but at least you're not playing roulette with a frozen patty. Because in a country where even your burger might be part of a corporate cover-up, maybe it's time we all ask, is the meat cheap or just the truth? Number 2, Walmart Great Value. They sit in the freezer aisle like a working man's jackpot. Walmart's Great Value frozen beef patties, 5 pounds for under 15 bucks. For families juggling bills or retirees living off fixed checks, that kind of deal feels like striking gold at the end of the month. The packaging sells a vision. 100% pure beef, no fillers, just good old-fashioned meat. Like your uncle used to flip on a 4th of July grill. It feels honest, familiar. But what if that little blue bag isn't a budget blessing, but a chemical trap dressed in plastic? In March of 2025, the watchdog group Food Truth Now dropped a report that sent chills through freezer doors nationwide. Out of 30 store-brand patties tested, including Walmart's Great Value, almost half were contaminated with chemical residues like sodium phosphate and TBHQ. These names don't mean much to most folks, but to toxicologists, they're red flags. TBHQ has been linked to DNA damage and tumor growth in animal studies. It's banned in parts of Europe for a reason, and yet there it is, hiding in burgers sold to seniors, single parents, and folks who just want to stretch a dollar. The labels? Silent, not a whisper. Worse yet, the sodium phosphate levels weren't just over the limit, they shattered it. The EU's safe level was exceeded by more than 400% in some patties. And those chemicals, they don't just season the meat, they sneak into your body, disrupting everything from kidney function to bone strength, especially in older adults already on medication or battling chronic conditions. But wait, it gets uglier. In April 2025, the USDA flagged Great Value patties for possible metal contamination. Tiny metal slivers were traced to broken grinding machinery at a Kansas facility. While Walmart quietly recalled the affected products, internal memos revealed they deliberately avoided telling customers directly to minimize brand disruption. One Oklahoma lawsuit claims a woman broke her molar biting into a burger, mistaking a metal strip for a bit of gristle. Imagine paying for a dinner that cracks your tooth. And what about that proud 100% beef label? Turns out, under USDA loopholes, it can still mean beef from elderly dairy cows or scraps sliced off bones by machines. According to the National Ground Beef Council's February 2025 bulletin, over 70% of private label frozen patties, including Great Value, come from mechanically separated meat trimmings, bits and slush that Europe relegates to pet food. Walmart's response? A boilerplate press release in May, insisting their suppliers meet all U.S. safety standards. But here's the kicker. American standards allow a whole lot that Europe refuses to touch. If it's heated enough, our regulations say, it's fine. That's not safety, it's legal optimism. And in the shadows behind these patties, there's a darker story still. Labor Watch USA reported that some meatpacking plants tied to Great Value vendors were cited for wage theft, underage migrant workers, and workers enduring 90-hour weeks in stifling, unventilated rooms. This is the meat served at shelters, food banks, even school cafeterias, places where the only option is trust. But trust doesn't have to mean blind faith. Co-ops like White Oak Pastures or producers certified by the American Grass-Fed Association now offer frozen patties online with ingredients you can actually pronounce. Or go grassroots. Buy a chuck roast, grind it once at home, or with the butcher's help, shape your patties and freeze them between wax paper. No fake fillers, no metal, no secrets. Because when a value burger starts looking more like a lab experiment than a meal, it's fair to ask, how cheap is too cheap? Number 3, Kroger. The name alone sounds like something you'd find behind the glass counter at an old-fashioned meat market. Kroger's Butcher's Blend. It's the kind of label that makes you imagine a friendly butcher with rolled-up sleeves, hand-selecting brisket, chuck, and short rib while swapping recipes with regulars. It sits a notch above store-brand basics, hinting at better quality without the sticker shock of upscale organics. For families hoping to stretch a few more burgers out of their budget without sacrificing flavor, it feels like a win. But behind the rustic charm lies a product stitched together with shortcuts, hidden chemicals, and meat that's traveled farther than most Americans have. In March of 2025, the Environmental Working Group released findings that yanked the apron right off Kroger's wholesome image. Lab tests on Butcher's Blend patties from stores in Ohio, Texas, and Georgia detected the presence of nitrites and nitrates, preservatives strictly banned in fresh ground beef by the European Union. These chemicals are typically used in cured meats like hot dogs, not in something marketed as fresh. Their presence in Kroger's blend prompted official consumer complaints across 3 states. So what's the big deal with nitrates? A joint study from Johns Hopkins and the World Cancer Research Fund published earlier that year linked regular consumption of nitrite-laced red meat with a 23% increase in colorectal cancer risk, especially in people over 60. And this wasn't a trace contamination. Some samples showed nitrite levels 5 to 7 times higher than the EU's safe limit. That's not just bending the rules, that's practically folding them into origami. But the red flags didn't stop there. In February, a whistleblower from one of Kroger's third-party suppliers dropped a file on Food and Water Watch's desk. It revealed that Butcher's Blend was often made from reworked meat, previously frozen beef scraps imported from Brazil and Uruguay that didn't pass initial USDA grading. These scraps are ground, mixed, and treated for reuse. Europe bans that entirely in human-grade beef. Here, it slides in under the radar. And the meat's appearance? That vibrant red isn't from freshness, it's from gas. Specifically, carbon monoxide, used to make old beef look new. This practice has been outlawed in Europe for over a decade because it hides spoilage. But in the US, it's just another industry standard. Even worse, Kroger's suppliers have been tied to feedlots accused of animal cruelty, prodding, overcrowding, and lack of clean water. While such conditions don't violate US law outright, they would never fly under European welfare standards. Now, if that burger's starting to taste bitter, don't panic. There are better options. Seek out organic or grass-fed beef from farms certified by the American Grass-Fed Association or Global Animal Partnership. If that's tough in your area, stores like Sprouts or Thrive Market stock small-batch, frozen patties with no artificial preservatives or gas-treated coloring. Or go classic, buy a cut of chuck, grind it at home, and season it yourself. At least then, you'll know your burger hasn't crossed the equator and back. Number 4, Cargill. You probably wouldn't recognize the name Cargill in a grocery aisle, and that's no accident. Cargill doesn't chase brand loyalty, they hide behind it. Their Excel ground beef quietly slips into stores under private labels, generic brands, or even preformed patties sold in school cafeterias and prison kitchens. You've likely eaten a Cargill burger without even knowing it. That's the business model. Keep the name quiet, keep the profits loud. But in 2025, the quiet part got real loud, and it wasn't just uncomfortable, it was terrifying. In January, a joint bulletin from the FDA and USDA uncovered a mess at a Cargill facility in Colorado. Inspectors cited Excel for unsanitary equipment, improper carcass washing, and, most alarming of all, the failure to separate high-risk AMR beef from regular ground beef batches. AMR, short for Advanced Meat Recovery, uses machines to scrape every last bit of flesh from bones. The result? A paste-like slurry that's been banned for human consumption in the European Union since 2012 due to the risk of, you guessed it, mad cow disease. In the US, though, it's still legal, as long as there's no spinal cord in the mix and the calcium levels don't scream bone soup. But that's not what the whistleblower memo leaked in March said. According to documents obtained by the National Whistleblower Center, at least 2 batches of Excel ground beef sent to institutions, yes, places like correctional facilities and public schools, tested positive for spinal fragments and bone marrow. These are considered top-tier mad cow risk materials worldwide. In Canada or Australia, that beef would be destroyed. In the US, it got served with a side of fries. And there's more. The Clean Label Project found that Excel's beef often contains residual chlorine dioxide, a chemical bleach used to disinfect meat that's been contaminated with feces. While technically legal here, it's banned in Europe for one glaring reason. It doesn't solve the contamination, it just makes it look clean. And according to the European Chemicals Agency, consuming even low levels of chlorine dioxide over time may increase cancer risk. But perhaps the darkest chapter is human. Investigative reporters from the Midwest Labor Review revealed that Cargill subcontractors employed underage migrant teens, some as young as 15, for overnight cleaning shifts. These kids were scrubbing blood-coated machinery with corrosive chemicals from dusk to dawn. The same machines used to process the beef that ends up in your discount burger. The Department of Labor later confirmed these violations in an official citation. So what do you do when your burger might contain spinal tissue, chemical bleach, and child labor, all blended into one neat little patty? Start by avoiding anonymous meat. Brands like Teton Waters Ranch and First Light offer grass-fed, hormone-free beef with full traceability, no AMR, no bleach, no lies. For those on a tighter budget, local co-ops and butcher shops often sell single cow grinds or frozen 1-pound blocks sourced from regional ranches. Ask for it by name. Know where it came from. Number 5. Tyson Foods. It's sold as convenience in a bag, and for a lot of families, Tyson's ground beef crumbles seem like the dream. Toss into tacos, stir into pasta, warm up for a quick meal after a long shift. The bag promises 100% real beef, no artificial colors, and the comfort of knowing it's pre-cooked for your safety. On paper, it looks like Tyson handed you a shortcut to dinner with none of the guilt. But when something promises that much ease, you've got to ask, what's hiding behind all that heat and serve simplicity? In May 2025, the National Consumers League lit the fuse. Their deep dive review, backed by testing from UC Davis, found Tyson's beef crumbles loaded with propylparaben, a synthetic antioxidant banned from all beef products in the European Union. Why? Because it's been linked to hormone disruption, allergic reactions in kids and seniors, and even endocrine issues. Worse yet, the levels detected in Tyson's product weren't small. They exceeded EU safety limits by more than 600%. In the US, this compound is still legal in packaging films, and thanks to a labeling loophole, it doesn't even have to appear on the ingredients list if it makes its way into the food through the wrapper. But the lab report didn't stop there. A March 2025 study from the Clean Label Project uncovered nanosilicon dioxide in those same crumbles. That's right, nano, as in ultra-tiny particles used as anti-caking agents in processed meat. These particles, while legal in the US, are under heavy fire in Europe after concerns they may breach the blood-brain barrier and cause oxidative stress, especially in older adults. Tyson's label? Completely silent on it. Why? Because it's classified here under the GRAS loophole, generally recognized as safe, a back door the food industry's been using like it's a revolving door at a Vegas casino. Still not done? Let's talk about where the meat came from. A February 2025 expose by ProPublica revealed that during the inflation spike of late 2024, Tyson switched from US beef to cheaper imported trim from Mexico and India. Some of it lacked clear country of origin documentation, meaning the consumer never knew. And those regions, frequently cited for lax testing and higher risk of veterinary drug residues, foot and mouth disease, and bovine tuberculosis. The EU wouldn't allow a bite of it through customs, but here, it gets pan-fried for school lunch. And while Tyson was shipping these questionable crumbles to schools and shelters, their PR team was running feel-good ads under a campaign called Feeding the Future. The future, apparently, includes a side of packaging-borne preservatives, nanopowder, and sourcing from mystery cows. Even the workforce behind these products is under scrutiny. Amnesty International's 2025 report accused Tyson of labor violations, ranging from threats against injured workers to unpaid overtime. A separate USDA audit that June confirmed high turnover in their beef crumble plants was causing quality inconsistency and elevated contamination risk. Translation: unsafe conditions for workers often means unsafe food for the rest of us. So what's the way out of this microwavable mess? North Star Bison and Grassroots Co-op are two brands offering fully cooked beef crumbles made from pasture-raised cattle, no preservatives, and no nanodust. Or skip the factory altogether, brown some fresh ground beef with garlic and salt, freeze it in reusable trays, and heat when needed. That way, dinner doesn't come with a side of unanswered questions. Because if the only thing 100% real about your beef is the marketing, maybe it's time we stop treating processed food like it's foolproof. Number 6. Cisco. You won't find Cisco on the dinner table, but you'd better believe it's in the dinner. This food service giant operates behind the scenes of nearly every institutional kitchen in America: schools, hospitals, nursing homes, even military bases. Their Reliance brand ground beef comes in 10-pound tubes that look more like construction materials than food, yet it fuels millions of low-cost meals every single day. The label promises lean, USDA-inspected, and institutional grade. But in 2025, those promises crumbled under the weight of contamination, manipulation, and systemic neglect. In June 2025, a joint enforcement report by the USDA and FDA revealed something chilling. Multiple batches of Cisco Reliance ground beef tested positive for Clostridium perfringens, a bacterium that causes intense abdominal pain, diarrhea, and dehydration. It's not as flashy as E. coli, but in older adults, it can land you in a hospital or worse. Between January and April, over 120 suspected cases were linked to Cisco-supplied retirement homes across 4 states. That's not a glitch. That's a gut punch to some of the most defenseless Americans. But the contamination didn't happen by accident. It was built into the process. Internal documents leaked to Food Integrity Watchdog exposed Cisco's practice of vacuum sealing the beef while it's still warm, a hot pack method designed for shipping efficiency. Problem is, warm, sealed meat creates an oxygen-free zone that bacteria love. Europe banned this exact method in 2023, requiring ground beef be cooled below 4 degrees Celsius within 30 minutes. The US still playing catch-up. And what about the meat itself? A May expose from the Consumer Safety Project found Reliance tubes contain nearly 30% connective tissue, ligaments, sinew, and scraps you'd normally toss to the dog. The EU classifies this as Category 3 waste, not fit for human labeling. In America, if it came from a cow, it counts. That means your meatloaf might be bound together with more tendon than tenderness. Now brace yourself for the ethics. In February, Reuters uncovered that Cisco had secured exclusive meat supply deals with prison systems across southern states, despite ongoing complaints from inmate advocates about foul-smelling meat, sulfur-like odors, and potential health consequences. Internal kitchen logs described rotten product being delivered in sealed boxes. Cisco denied any wrongdoing, but curiously canceled 2 of those contracts just weeks later. No explanation, No accountability, just silence. And here's who pays the price: seniors in assisted living, hospital patients recovering from surgery, incarcerated people with no choice and no voice. They're served the lowest tier meat that wouldn't even be legal under European food safety rules. That's not just a policy failure, that's a moral failure. Even more concerning, these same meat tubes are now slipping into discount grocery stores under generic packaging. So if you're shopping on a limited budget, here's the move. Skip the mystery meat. Look for clear, transparent packaging where you can see the texture. Country Natural Beef and Seven Sons Farms offer affordable bulk packs with clean sourcing and no filler tricks. Or buy fresh ground beef, portion it at home, and freeze it yourself. That 10-minute effort could be the difference between nourishment and regret. Because when prisons and hospitals are fed with what Europe classifies as waste, it's time we ask, who decided America's most vulnerable deserves second-rate meat from a system that never even sees their faces? Number 7. Food Lion. At first glance, Food Lion's 73 27th ground beef roll seems like a classic working-class win. $10 or less for a tube of meat big enough to stretch across a week's worth of dinners. In communities up and down the East Coast and Deep South, it's the backbone of taco nights, spaghetti meals, and skillet casseroles. No frills nourishment from a store that feels local and affordable. The label keeps things simple: just beef, no added solutions, USDA inspected. But in 2025, that tight roll of meat started to unravel something much darker, something that made families question not just what they were eating, but how long it had been dead. In April, the Virginia Department of Agriculture quietly flagged Food Lion's packing partner for using carbon monoxide flushing during packaging without disclosing it. That's right, the meat gets bathed in gas to stay red longer, even as it begins to rot. In the US, this method is legal thanks to decades-old loopholes, but in Europe, banned since 2013. And in 2025, France went a step further, pushing for sanctions on US meat using this method after multiple fake fresh imports raised alarms. The result? What looks fresh in your fridge may have been chemically preserved to fool your eyes and betray your gut. But the most disturbing findings didn't come from government officials. They came from a third-party lab test in May, commissioned by the Meat Integrity Network. Of 12 Food Lion ground beef rolls pulled from 5 states, 9 contained elevated levels of biogenic amines, specifically putrescine and cadaverine. Yes, cadaverine. These aren't exotic chemicals, they're literally the gases released during meat decomposition. Levels found were 5 times higher than what Europe considers safe. These compounds are associated with migraines, digestive distress, and histamine intolerance, especially in older adults already dealing with medications or chronic conditions. So how did spoiled meat stay on shelves within its sell-by date? Turns out the problem wasn't just the gas flush. An internal audit leaked by a former distribution manager revealed that Food Lion's budget meat often sits unrefrigerated for up to 11 hours between transit hubs, particularly during seasonal rushes. The US only checks temperatures upon final delivery. In the EU, real-time monitoring is mandatory from slaughterhouse to shelf. The difference isn't just regulation, it's respect. And then there's the origin of the beef itself. Most of Food Lion's 73/27 product comes from a co-packer in Arkansas, sourcing trimmings from Australia and Central America, where growth hormones banned in Europe are still in active use. The beef is frozen, shipped across oceans, thawed, reground, and wrapped under the comforting phrase, "product of the USA," thanks to outdated labeling policies that still fool American consumers. So what's the alternative when money's tight? Look for never frozen and no gas flush labels, especially at chains like Earth Fare or regional grocers like Ingles. which carry third-party certified meat. Or shop the butcher counter, where turnover is faster, and you can trust your eyes and nose more than a shrink-wrapped illusion. Even stepping up to an 80/20 fresh ground chuck in smaller packs can save your stomach from the invisible rot. Because when your $9 beef roll smells sweeter to flies than to a frying pan, it's worth asking, are we feeding ourselves or just filling time until the next emergency room visit? If the meat in your fridge tells a nicer story than the system that produced it, maybe it's time to ask harder questions and demand better answers. Subscribe to our channel for more investigations that don't just expose what's in your food, but why it got there in the first place.
Thanks so much for sticking with us to the very end. If you like this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe so you won't miss any of our daily updates. And now feel free to check out some of our latest and most popular videos showing up on your screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next one.